Hello. Thanks for taking the time to view this video. Your time, attention, and input matter a great deal. I'm Becky Safrick, and with me is Will Jones, our Deputy Public Works Director with the City of Greeley. This November, the city may have two measures on the ballot to renew existing sales taxes. This preview gives us the chance to inform you, and through you, the community, about the background and importance of these sales taxes. It also gives us the chance to gather your valuable feedback so we can further inform voters. The two measures you will hear about have been two of the most critical measures that allow the city to directly fund assets, such as our recreation facilities and parks, as well as things like roads, sidewalks, and traffic signals. I want to thank you and all the taxpayers who have historically committed resources by voting for the taxes in the past to ensure that Greeley can consistently improve, maintain, and grow this type of infrastructure. Thank you for giving us this time to share with you and for being such strong community ambassadors and advocates for the city. In this presentation, we're going to discuss Greeley's infrastructure, how it's funded, and some of the projects that we've been able to address. One challenge with that is that Greeley's population has almost doubled in the last 30 years. Compare our 77% population increase during this time to Denver at 55%, Aurora at 70%, or Westminster at 52%. That means there are more pressure on our roads, our parks, and our public buildings. Meanwhile, we've been working to keep maintenance costs and spending low, but our needs are piling up. We have hundreds of projects to address in the coming years. Our existing tax revenues are critical to maintaining and repairing our infrastructure. So let's talk about public infrastructure, how it's funded, and some of the projects we've been able to address. Greeley has two key taxes that help fund much of our infrastructure maintenance, repairs, and improvements. One is the food tax, and the other is the Keep Greeley Moving tax. The food tax has been around for about 30 years and was approved by voters repeatedly and by large margins. The Keep Greeley Moving tax was originally passed in 2015 and is specifically dedicated to transportation improvements. Both of these taxes are set to expire in the next couple of years. City Council may ask voters to reauthorize these taxes in this year. If voters decide not to renew the taxes, we will be forced to delay or cut important infrastructure improvements and services. Voters are being asked to renew these measures early and at the same time so that we can engage in longer-term strategic planning to achieve both efficiency in our capital improvements and to plan for the future. Let's take a bird's eye view of the kind of infrastructure these two taxes support. As you can see from this chart, we group the infrastructure improvements supported by these tax measures into three basic areas. These keep our roads maintained, our buildings accessible, our parks fun and inviting to visitors, and our playgrounds safe for kids. But all that takes a lot of upkeep, staff time, and financial resources because the city of Greeley has a substantial amount of infrastructure to maintain. As Greeley has grown, so has our infrastructure. Take a look at this: 375 miles of roads, 1,738 acres of parks, 5 recreation facilities, and more than 1 million square feet of public facilities and buildings, like recreation facilities, play courts, and city service buildings. So back to the two voter-approved revenue sources. The older of the two measures, which voters approved over the last 30 years, has been what's called the food tax. This measure created a 3% tax on groceries. This tax does not apply to restaurants or takeout. The second measure is called the Keep Greeley Moving tax. This is a 0.65% tax on all other sales, excluding groceries. These two types of taxes are among the most common ways cities raise funds to support their infrastructure improvements. As sales taxes, these help ensure that all users, visitors, and residents alike contribute to the maintenance and construction of the infrastructure that they use. By continuing these existing sales taxes, the city does not compete with existing property taxes that support other public services such as schools, libraries, public health, and safety, to name a few. If the council moves forward to place these initiatives on the ballot this November, voters will be asked to renew these measures at the same time prior to their sunset dates. This is so important to us and will help us engage in longer-term strategic planning to achieve efficiency in our capital improvements projects and do a better job for our community. And now I want Will to talk a little bit more about some of these important infrastructure improvements.
Thank you, Becky, and thank you for those watching. So Greeley's food tax is our primary funding for parks, recreation, street, and public building maintenance. It is 3% tax on grocery purchases only, and has historically generated an annual revenue of about $9 million. It's been approved by our voters each of the 6 elections since 1990, and rebates are important and available for income qualifying households. For more information on that, feel free to call 970-336-4082. What we have here is a list of infrastructure projects that have been completed since 2014 through 2018. And as you can see, the Greeley food tax repairs and improvements for traffic signals, accessibility improvements, building repairs, parks and rec facilities, as well as roads and sidewalks. Greeley's food tax funds so much of the infrastructure we sometimes take for granted. The condition of our trails and parks and path, like you see with the picture of the Pooter Trail on the left, HVAC systems in our public buildings, parking lot surfacing, striping, and cleanup, traffic signals and detection to help manage traffic flow, as you see on the picture on the right. Other things like repairs to basketball courts and tennis courts are equally as important. Much of what is at stake with the food tax are the parts of buildings you may not always notice. It's accessibility improvements for the disabled, HVAC repairs, bathroom improvements, and window replacements. The food tax makes sure we can tackle these problems before they get worse, while keeping our energy costs low and improving water savings. This is a sample of the projects slated over the next 5 years. But you can see these projects might seem small, but they are very critical. If we put them off, they get worse. They get harder to fix, and more importantly, they get more expensive. Next, we have Keep Greeley Moving. It's critical funding source for our transportation-related repairs, improvements, and construction projects. It is a 0.65 sales tax on all our non-grocery purchases and has been approved by our voters in 2015. Some of the recent Keep Greeley Moving projects are identified on this next slide. And some of those are road widening projects, street resurfacing, restriping and crack sealing, sidewalk repair, and pothole patching. The map to the left is a list of all of the Keep Greeley Moving road maintenance projects that have been completed or plan to be completed through the sunset of this tax. Since it was passed in 2015, Greeley has been able to take on major road projects earlier than planned. For example, 20th Street improvements, which widened the road from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, added a median, turn lanes, and sidewalks on both sides. 71st Avenue improvements included the replacement of a bridge that was failing, added a center lane, turn lane, and medians, as well as adding bike lanes and sidewalks. More projects are in the pipeline, including 35th Avenue, which includes widening from 4th Street to F Street, adding on-street bike lanes, curb, gutter, sidewalks, and landscaping medians, which is so important for those traveling that corridor, including students from Franklin. Greeley measures the quality of its roads to know when and where the improvements are needed. On average, Greeley has a fair ranking, and we're on track to have a satisfactory road conditions. We identify those based off of what we call PQI, or Pavement Quality Index. To the left in the graph, you can see that if this tax is not renewed, that PQI, or road quality, drastically decreases. What that means is more cracks, more potholes, and more ruts while driving through town. With that, I will pass it back to Becky. Thank you.
In addition to not burdening our residents and businesses with excessive taxes, we are also acutely aware that Greeley needs to be competitive in its tax rate with surrounding jurisdictions. With the Keep Greeley Moving tax in place, Greeley's sales tax will continue to be 7.01%. That means our sales tax will continue to be similar to and competitive with nearby cities, often lower. For example, Loveland's Centerra district outpaces us at 8.45%, while Fort Collins is at 7.55%. Evans is at 7.4%. These are all slightly higher than our tax rate. And we're much lower than other comparable cities in Colorado. For example, Colorado Springs is at 8.25%, Aurora at 7.25%, Grand Junction at 8.52%, Brighton at 8.5%, and Castle Rock at 7.9%. So we're working hard to stay competitive. There's a cost of not renewing both of these taxes. Greatly reduced road maintenance and highway conditions and increased risk of road failure and expensive rebuilds are certainly among the things we need to consider. We also know that not renewing the taxes diminishes community image and attractiveness as a place to live, learn, work, and play. We find that it's harder to attract businesses and it also impacts movements of our goods and services, which is bad for business. We have higher maintenance costs, and it removes dedicated funding to address safe and efficient travel. Another aspect that is impacted if we don't renew the taxes is our ability to do ADA or accessibility compliance improvements. City resources may have to be reprioritized and redirected to support infrastructure needs, and this may require reduction in other city programs and services. Another aspect that is impacted is our ability to match project funding. We're more competitive when we have a dedicated funding source to go after these additional funds. And lastly, it will diminish the safety, livability, and quality of life for all of our residents. We know that being accountable to the taxpayers is among the highest priorities that we have as we ask for new tax dollars to help us fund these improvements. To that end, both ballot questions include measures to ensure tax dollars are overseen. All expenditures for each project are reported online in our annual budget. We have an independent audit that's conducted of these improvements and the funds that we've used, as well as an important Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, which reviews an annual audit of all of our finances related to these expenses. Your input as residents serving on city boards offer informed and key perspectives for us. City Council is eager for your observations, your input, and suggestions about these proposed tax renewals. Right now, the City Council on August 18th initiated formal consideration of placing one or both of these measures on the November 2020 ballot. A final decision is expected at their September 1st council meeting. There are several ways that you can help. First of all, tell us what you think. What additional information should we address, or what questions do you still have? Can you share this information by helping to share it with other groups that you're a member of? Help create awareness and educate those who may not be aware of these two important measures. If you may be able to host a meeting with your organization and bring together your board, employees, and members of the community to learn more about the potential measures, that is one more way that you can help. But no matter how you feel about these two potential ballot measures, be sure to get out and vote this year. Being an engaged participant in your local community and government is incredibly important to all of us. With that, you can learn more about this initiative, these initiatives, and the voting that's involved with that at the website that is located on your screen at greeleygov.com/government/cc/election/2020 ballot measures. We would be glad to answer your questions, and you may do so by contacting us at any time.